So our 2024-2025 season previews continue on today with the Los Angeles Kings. So apologies, this video is coming out a little bit later, just coming back from the Labor Day weekend in the States, and my video production is quite delayed, so I do apologize for that. But following this week, we will be right back on schedule with our season previews, which we never really got off schedule anyways, but this one just recording a little bit later in the day than the other ones did come out. So, regardless, the Los Angeles Kings, definitely a team that has consistently made the playoffs, but has also been consistent first-round exits in the last 3 seasons. In 21-22, which is where we get started with these, they went 44, 27, and 11 for 99 points. They were 14th in the NHL. I believe they were 3rd in that Pacific Division, which honestly I think they were through most of these series, and they lost in 7 games to the Edmonton Oilers in that first round. Even though, you go into that first round series, they still lose. Kings put up a good fight. Oilers were honestly, I don't know if they were favored to win the series, but I think a lot of people leaned Edmonton because of McDavid and Draisaitl and all that. But definitely at that point, Kings put up a good effort. The following year, they got better. In 22-23, they went 47, 25, and 10 for 104 points. They were 10th in the NHL. They made it to the first round and lost in 6 games to the Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah, you lose the second time to Edmonton. It's very frustrating. It's got to be annoying. This time you lose in 6, so that's annoying. But the third time came last year in 23-24, where they went 44, 27, and 11 for 99 points. They were 12th in the NHL. Yes, by the way, they had the same record this past year as they did in 21-22, and as a result, they lost in 5 games, not 6, not 7, 5 games to the Oilers yet again. So it has been a very frustrating point for this Kings team facing the Oilers the last couple of seasons. It's definitely been something that LA fans are incredibly frustrated around. And to be honest, I can't blame them because I would be the same way if my team lost to the exact same team 3 years in a row. Oh, man. But regardless, this past offseason, they made a lot of moves that were controversial at the very least, but they were definitely some interesting moves. The guys they brought in, Warren Foegele, Tanner Jeannot, Jack Studnicka, Joel Edmondson, and Darcy Kuemper. I guess we'll start with our guys that we brought in for the first one. Foegele, I think, is a good, second or third line guy. I think, to be honest, though, he should be more of a third or fourth line player on a depth team. When you look at these projections, Fogel's a second line forward. Not entirely sure I agree with that. But hey, I mean, they bring him in. He played well in Edmonton, deserved his pay raise. I don't know if the pay raise is necessarily the right thing he should have done, but he definitely deserved it. Tanner Jeannot, they brought in from Tampa. I think LA made a lot of moves where they brought in a lot of guys who were kind of just exiles from other teams. Like Jeannot is a big example of that. Joel Edmondson, who they brought in on their blue line. Edmondson, I'm not a huge fan of that. But I guess we'll see how it works out. Studnicka, not a bad depth or fourth line forward. And then Darcy Kuemper, probably going to be our starter. Is he better than Cam Talbot? I would say they're at the same level. I don't know if one's better than the other. Kuemper did win a Stanley Cup. I do think that his time with Washington does kind of paint an image that he's not a great goaltender. He did well in LA. He did well in Arizona. He did solid enough to win a cup in Colorado. So I think he can still be a really solid goaltender. Just those years in Washington just were a struggle for him, to be honest with you. The departures, the guys who left, you have Dubois, Arvidsson, Lizotte, and Grundstrom. So starting off with Dubois, there were rumors that they were going to buy him out. Rod Blake said, no, we're not buying him out. Stop with that rumor. And I was like, all right, okay. I guess I can, buy into him being a King. I wasn't 100%, believing he should have signed that big contract that they signed him to. But they flipped him to Washington for Kuemper. Honestly, whatever you can do to get rid of that contract, I am not complaining. Losing Wah, big loss. Good defensive defenseman. It's going to suck not seeing him in the LA blue line. Arvidsson, I thought he was all right in the time here. He faced a lot of injuries, but they obviously had to move on from him. Lizotte and Grundstrom were just kind of guys who fit in depth roles. They weren't anything that was too of the ordinary, to be honest with you. But overall, that's the moves this Kings team made this past offseason. So, their Hockey News' projected lines. Again, these were not made by me. They were made by the Hockey News, so don't come at me. Your first line, Fiala, Kopitar, Kempe, not Kempe. And then second line, Moore, Byfield, Foegele. So, again, I don't hate that top six. Foegele being a top six right winger is definitely a little bit concerning because, to be honest, you have Kempe and then it's just So yeah, that's a little bit something that I'm a little bit concerned about. But overall, the top six is really good. Byfield hopefully takes another step this coming year. He did really well last year. If that first line can stay as consistent as it was last year, I'm not complaining. Trevor Moore's a good enough forward and actually had a pretty good year last year. Your bottom six is where I do have a lot of questions. You have Alex Laferriere, Philip Denault, and Tanner Jeannot. Then you have Alex Turcotte, Akil Thomas, and Trevor Lewis. Then for some extra guys, you have Samuel Vejemo, Jack Stanika, and Arthur Kaliev. So a few things to keep in mind here. There are a lot of guys who are big what-ifs. What-ifs being Laferriere and Turcotte. More Turcotte than Laferriere, but still Turcotte. I would say for Laferriere, he had a solid season last year. He had a all-right rookie year. Again, Laferriere wasn't like someone who was projected to be a highly touted prospect, so the year he had, I wasn't really disappointed or surprised or anything like that. But I do think if he can take another step this year, that'd be huge for the Kings. I think he can definitely do that. Turcotte, it's a big what if. What if this guy can stay healthy? What if he can play at the NHL level for a legitimate amount of time? Those are big what ifs. I'm not ruling it out, but I definitely think that that's something that it's going to be interesting to look at with LA if he does make the team. Because, again, their depth is a little bit weaker, but I think they made their depth a little bit weaker because they're counting on some of those young guys to take a step this coming year. Same with Akil Thomas and other guys of that note. The other guys in that bottom six, Denault, good third-line center. I don't know if he should be a third-line center, but he's a good third-line center. Jeannot, we'll see how he fits in. Again, he has that brutal contract. We'll see how he will do. Lewis, they brought him in last year. He worked out well. They're going to bring him back for another season. And then your depth guys. We'll see what Stanika does. We'll see how much time Kaliev gets. It's just a matter of how good do these guys do out of camp, what injuries do they face, and a few other things that you got to keep in mind as well. Your defense is okay, it's not terrible. Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty is your first pairing. Vladislav Gavrikov and Brandt Clarke as your second pairing. And then Joel Edmondson and Jordan Spence is your third pairing. And then you have Andreas Englund as your seventh D there, I guess. So, honestly, it's not that bad. I think that the top four is good. I think Clarke, again, is going to take another step this year. I thought he looked good in the sample size he's played in the last couple of seasons. It's just a matter of, I think he can definitely stay at the full NHL level. He's ready. He's probably, I would say, he's definitely a top 3 defensive prospect in the league. He probably could be number 1 if he's even a prospect. I know people were complaining at me when I made my top 30 list that Clarke's been a prospect for 3 years. Yeah, he's taken a while to get there. But again, I do think that when he fully converts, which should be this season, he will be really good. Again, that top 4 is solid. I'm a little bit hesitant on that third pairing because Edmondson I'm not too reliant on. I think Jordan Spence is a good defenseman for sure. But again, these aren't my projected lineups. These aren't what I think is going to happen fully. If there were things that I completely disagree with, I would have changed. But regardless, I do think that the defense is solid. The top 6 is good. The bottom 6, a lot of questions. The goaltending is some questions too. You have Darcy Kemper and David Rittich as your 2 goalies. Again, I'm high on Kemper. I think Kemper can be a good goaltender. I've seen him do well in Arizona. I've seen him do well in Colorado. Those last 2 seasons in Washington were just not that great. And that makes it the biggest what if for this Kings team right now is Kemper. If Kemper can perform, I 100% think this team is a playoff team and they will compete and they probably could maybe even win a playoff round depending on who they're playing. But if Kemper doesn't pan out to the goalie we want him to be, they could make the playoffs. I'm not calling them a lock, unfortunately. As much as I want to, I don't think they would be a lock, to be honest with you. So let's convert to the Hockey News' fantasy guide and yearbook. The Hockey News has them 4th in the Atlantic, which is around where I have them. Maybe I thought about them being 3rd. It's not out of the question. Their cup odds, 36-1. The biggest X factor facing this team is the next wave's continued emergence is vital for the Kings to return to relevance. If the young guys like Clark, Byfield, Thomas, and Turcotte can ascend as the height of their powers while veterans Doughty and Kopitar remain elite, the Kings could exceed expectations and win a playoff series for the first time since capturing a Stanley Cup in 2014. Isn't that crazy? This Kings team won the Stanley Cup in 2014, 10 years ago, and they haven't won a playoff series since. Wild to think. Now, granted, a lot of those years were them not being in the playoffs, so again, it's a little understandable, but it's still kind of crazy to think. Again, a lot of these I pointed out throughout the video. Again, I think that Byfield could take another step. Clark could take a big step. Again, a lot of those other guys are kind of just what ifs. Like Turcotte, Laferriere, and Thomas, kind of just a little bit of what ifs. Like if they pan out, they can definitely do really well. I didn't really touch base on Kopitar and Doughty. I think they will be. I think Kopitar is a great two-way center. I think he's been terrific the last couple of seasons, even at his age. Doughty, it's been on and off. I think he's still a solid defenseman for sure. Still probably top 20 in the NHL if I were to make a top 20 list. I only do up to 10. But I definitely think that, I think those guys can stay at the elite level. Maybe they regress a little bit. But even then, if you do regress a little bit as an elite player like they are, you'll just be really good. So again, the Kings, I think honestly, they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're a little underrated because I think some people look at this team and are like, yeah, that bottom six is trash. And then they just say they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I definitely think that it's not the best bottom six in the league. The defense isn't that great either, or isn't the best either. But I still think that definitely this team is still a playoff team, for sure. Unless if Seattle has a massive bounce back this coming year and they get back into the playoffs over the Kings. That's the only way I could see this really happening because Calgary's not catching them. Anaheim's not catching them. San Jose's probably not catching them. None of those teams, at least if something big happens, I don't think they're catching LA. So I think it's probably going to be them and Vegas and, obviously Oilers and Vancouver and maybe some teams from the Central Division too if it comes down to that wild card race. But I think they will be a playoff team. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Kind of rambled at the end there. I'm sorry about that. But regardless, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe down below. I really appreciate it. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.